Hi guys, hope you're having a good day. I'm going to read a few more pages from chapter 2 today and try to finish up the chapter tomorrow and then take a break over the weekend and start chapter 3 on Monday. So if you remember last time, Omri had gone to school. He saw Patrick and he didn't want to tell Patrick what was going on. And when he got home though, the Indian was plastic again. So let's find out what happens next. It never occurred to Omri now that he had imagined the whole incredible episode this morning. The Indian was in a completely different position from the one he had been in when Patrick gave him to Omri. Then he had been standing on one leg as if doing a war dance, knees bent, one moccasin foot raised, both elbows bent, with one fist, with a knife in it, in the air. Now he lay flat, legs apart, arms at his side. His eyes were closed. The knife was no longer with him. It lay separately on the floor of the cupboard. Omri picked it up. The easiest way to do this, he found, was to wet his finger and press down on the tiny knife, which stuck to it. It, too, was plastic and could no more have pierced human skin than a twist of paper. Yet it had pierced Omri's finger this morning. The little mark was still there. But this morning, it had been a real knife. Omri stroked the Indian with his finger. There was a painful thickness in the back of his throat, the pain of sadness, disappointment, and a strange sort of guilt burned inside him as if he had swallowed a very hot potato that wouldn't cool down. He let the tears come and just knelt there and cried for about 10 minutes. Then he put the Indian back in the cupboard, locked the door because he couldn't bear to look at him any longer. That night at supper he couldn't eat anything, and he couldn't talk. His father touched Omri's face and said it felt very hot. His mother took him upstairs and put him to bed, and oddly enough, he didn't object. He didn't know if he was ill or not, but he felt so bad he was glad to be made a fuss of. Not that it improved the situation, but it was some comfort. "What is it, Omri? Tell me," coaxed his mother. Can you hear your own mom saying, "Oh, just tell me. It's okay. You can tell me." She stroked his hair and looked at him tenderly and questioningly, and he nearly told her everything, but then he suddenly rolled over on his face. "Nothing, really." You imagine saying that back to your mom when you're just tired and don't want to say anything? She sighed, kissed him, or rather the back of him, and left the room, closing the door softly after her. As soon as she had gone, he heard something. A scratching, a muttering, a definitely alive sound coming from the cupboard. Omri snapped his bedside light on and stared wide-eyed at his own face in the mirror on the cupboard door. He stared at the key with its twisted ribbon. He listened to the sounds, now unmistakable. He tremblingly turned the key, and there was the Indian on the shelf this time, almost exactly level with Omri's face, alive again. Again they stared at each other. Then Omri asked flatteringly, "What happened to you?" "Happened? Good sleep. Cold ground. Need blanket. Food. Fire." Omri gaped. Was the little man giving him orders? Undoubtedly he was, because he waved his knife, now back in his hand, in an unmistakable way. Omri was so happy he could scarcely speak. "Okay, you stay there. I'll get food. Don't worry," he gasped as he scrambled out of bed. He hurried downstairs, excited but thoughtful. What could it all mean? That moment the cupboard door closed, the Indian went to sleep? It was puzzling, but he didn't bother worrying about it too much. His main concern was to get downstairs without his parents hearing him get to the kitchen, find some food that would suit the Indian, and bring it back without asking questions. Fortunately, his parents were in the living room watching television, so he was able to tiptoe into the kitchen along the dark passage. Once there, he dared not turn on a light, but there was the refrigerator light, and that was enough. He surveyed the inside of the refrigerator. What did Indians eat? Meat, chiefly, he supposed. Deer meat, rabbits, the sort of animals that they could shoot on their land. Needless to say, there was nothing of that sort. Biscuits, jam, peanut butter, that sort of thing was no problem, but somehow Omri felt sure these were not foods the Indian would enjoy. Suddenly, his searching eyes fell upon an open tin of sweet corn. He found a paper plate in the drawer where the picnic stuff was, and took a good teaspoonful of the corn. Then he broke off a crusty corner of bread, then thought of some cheese. And what about a drink? Milk? Surely Indian braves did not drink milk. They usually drank something called firewater in films, which was presumably a hot drink, but Omri dared not heat anything ordinary non-fire would have to do, or non-fire water would have to do, unless, what about some Coke? This was an American drink. Lucky there was a bit of a big bottle left over from his birthday, so he took that. He did wish there was some cold meat, but there just wasn't. Clutching the Coke bottle by the neck in one hand and the paper plate in the other, Omri snuck back upstairs with fast beating heart. All was just as he had left it, except the little Indian was sitting on the ledge of the shelf, dangling his legs and trying to sharpen his knife on the metal. He jumped up as soon as he saw Omri. "Food?" he asked eagerly. "Yes, but I don't know now if it's what you like." "I like. Give quick." But Omri wanted to arrange things a little. He took a pair of scissors and cut a small circle out of the paper plate. On this he put a crumb of bread, another of cheese, and one kernel of corn. He handed this offering to the Indian, who backed off, looking at the food with some hungry eyes, but trying to keep watch on Omri at the same time. "No touch. You touch, I use knife," he warned. "All right, I promise not to. Now you can eat." Very cautiously, the Indian sat down, this time cross-legged on the shelf. At first he tried to eat with his left hand, keeping the knife at the ready in his right hand. But he was so hungry he soon abandoned his effort, laid the knife close to the side table, grabbed the bread in one hand and a little crumb of cheese in the other. He began to tear at them ravenously. Ravenously means eating really fast. I'm sure we've all been hungry like that before. When these two apparently familiar foods had taken the edge off his appetite, he turned his attention to the single kernel of corn. "What?" he asked suspiciously. "Corn like you have—" Omri hesitated. "Where you come from," he said. It was a shot in the dark. He didn't know if the Indian came from anywhere, but he meant to find out. The Indian grunted, turning the corn about in both hands, for it was half as big as his head. He smelled it. With a great grin spread over his face, he nibbled it. The grin grew wider, but then he held it away and looked again, and the grin vanished. "Too big," he said. "Like you," he said accusingly. "Eat it. It's the same stuff." The Indian took a bite. He still looked very suspicious, but he ate and ate. He couldn't finish it, but he evidently liked it. I'm going to leave off right there, and we'll finish up tomorrow. You guys, please stay safe. I miss you guys. It's been funny not being able to see everybody and say hi and just have fun at school. But I hope you're safe, be healthy, take care of yourselves, and we'll finish chapter 2 tomorrow. See ya.